Good morning and welcome. It is an absolutely gorgeous day as we march towards the official start of summer. But I have a warning for you today, though. Whatever you do not go outside. Skin cancer is on the rise. So please stay in your houses, lock yourselves in. If you must go out, then put on SPF at least 24, glob it on as much as you can. Okay. But also do not forget, it's not only the sun that is a potential problem because the air is full of bacteria and viruses. So if you go outside, please do wear a mask. You may want to get vaccinated first thing before you do that. Okay. But your safety is at risk. Please be aware of this. Okay. Be aware if you want to travel, don't go to Mexico. There is an invasion at our southern border. So you don't want to end up in the middle of that. But of course, you can't go to Canada either because apparently the Chinese army is lined up on the border of Canada. I guess that leaves Europe. You can go to Europe. However, apparently Europe is being overrun by people who are demonstrating, and anti-Semitism is just out of control there. So I'm not sure if you want to go to Europe. Well, fortunately, an election is coming. So we have a chance to save all of this stuff. Of course, the election is rigged, as everybody knows. So I don't know that your vote is actually going to matter. But if you are going to vote, you have to vote for me in massive quantities. Quantities that are so large that it'll overcome the rigging of the vote. Because I'm the only one who has the solution. If you don't vote for me, we're going to lose our democracy. We're going to be overrun by the communists. And you're probably going to die a horrible, painful death. And people will mock you while you are in your grave. Fortunately, I can save you from all of this. All right. You have chosen the right man. So I want to validate your good looks as well as your judgment. Because I'm the only one who can get you out of this mess. Okay? All right, so now that we're all confident, we're ready to take on the world, aren't we? Is it just me, or has anxiety been trending up lately? It's not supposed to. This is June. We're in the middle of June now. This is summertime. We're supposed to be relaxed and chilled. It's ticked up, and I believe the reason is because we have an election cycle that has already begun, and it's starting to heat up. Now, it's going to get worse as we get closer to the election, as people turn their attention even more towards the upcoming election. It's going to get worse. So be aware of that. But my concern, obviously, is for each individual, all of my clients, and their health overall. It's such a funny thing when you look at it from a satirical kind of way. I was watching a movie the other day, and it's a comedy movie by Seth MacFarlane. It starred him and Charlize Theron. Pretty good, not bad. It's called A Million Ways to Die in the West. And there's a great monologue in it. I have to read it to you. I actually downloaded the script. So let me read this to you. So first of all, just so you know, I mean, he's a loser. He's in a bad relationship. His girlfriend breaks up with him. He hates his life. The West is just a brutal place. And so this is a monologue he delivers. The American West is a disgusting, awful, dirty, dangerous place. Look around you. Everything out here that's not you wants to kill you. Outlaws, angry drunk people, scorned hookers, hungry animals, diseases, major and minor injuries, Indians, the weather. You can get killed just going to the bathroom. I take my life in my hands every time I walk out to my outhouse. There's effing rattlesnakes all in the grass out there. And even if I make it, you know what can kill me? Cholera. You know cholera? The black crap. The black crap. The latest offering in the Frontiers Disease of the Month Club. And even if you survive all those things, you know what else can kill you? The effing doctor. The doctor can kill you. I had a cold a couple of years ago. I went in there. You know what he said to me? He goes, "Oh, you need an ear nail. A nail in my effing ear." That is modern medicine for you. Yeah, doc, I have a fever of 102. Oh, you need a donkey kicking. You know what? Our pastor has shot 2 people. Our pastor, honest to God, shot a guy in a duel and then went back and killed the guy's teenage son because he was afraid he would kill him out of revenge. Wait, how do you know that? Because he did a whole effing sermon about it. A lesson about seeing things through. By the way, look at this. See those guys over there? The guys who work in the silver mines? See what they're eating? Ribs doused in hot sauce. They eat hot, spicy foods every meal of the day. Do you know why? Because their palates are so completely effing dulled from inhaling poison gas 12 hours a day down in the mines. That's all they can taste. You know what kind of diet, you know what that kind of diet does to your guts? Constipation, cramps, dyspepsia, liver disease, kidney disease, hemorrhoids, bowel inflammation. They literally die from their own farts. And oh, you want to see more death? All we got to do is get up and walk out the front door. That is our mayor lying in the street. He is dead. He has been lying there dead for 3 days. No one has done a thing, not moved him, not looked into his death, not even replaced him with a temporary appointee. For the last 3 days, the highest ranking official in our town has been a dead guy. And then, of course, the wolves come and take him away, right? But I wanted to read that monologue. I thought it was so great and so relevant to what I'm talking about today. You know, how there are so many threats, seemingly, against us, how there is so much danger. So this guy was talking about the West in the 1800s. We're hearing this today from politicians and from media, and we're hearing it from all sides. And the reason is that the election is the world's longest sales cycle. Unfortunately, fear sells. Avoiding death and destruction sells. So there are a lot of people who are invested in making us fearful and anxious. Appeals to intellect don't have the same effect. Appeals to emotion do. If we can become convinced that there's danger out there, then we can be sold almost anything. Don't believe me? Let's look at the facts. Anyone know any mask salesman? All right, face mask salesman. How they do in the last few years? They did pretty well, didn't they? How about Lucite salesmen who were selling, you know, those plastic protectors, the barriers? I mean, first of all, it was mandated that we get it, right? But they did very well. That kind of fear and terror sells. And now they're pumping it into us. And I say they. And by the way, I hate they when it's used in that kind of context. They. Because that's just more paranoia, right? Who are they? I mean, they're individuals. But I think in this case, it's appropriate, right? There are people who have been deemed merchants of chaos. These are people who benefit from chaos, from creating danger, the perception of danger. They're not hard to spot. Like I said, it's being done by politicians, by media members. Okay? This seems to be their tool. This is how they ply their trade. It is very effective salesmanship. There's danger all around you. You're going to die, and I'm the one with the solution. Okay? It's an interesting thing. The other day, I was watching a sportscast with a commentator, and he delved into politics a little bit. So, by the way, this journey of mine into politics right now, I'm not sure if it's politics or media or culture or the conglomeration of all three. This is temporary. This is not really my thing. But I think it's important that we understand it. So this sportscaster, he did kind of a similar thing. You know, he took a bit of a foray into politics. And he said, you know, I don't like this one particular guy because he's always trying to sell me on how bad our country is. And I don't think it's that bad. Think about it. Is it? Well, let's look at it this way. If we look on one side of the aisle, we're told that it's so bad that we need to rewind the clock to when things were great. Now, it's never mentioned when that is, right? When were things great? When do we want to rewind the clock to? You know, if we go back, depending on how long we go back, I mean, we experience things like a Great Depression. There were times where women couldn't vote or minorities. You know, we've had other epidemics, health epidemics. We've had war. We've had civil war. Like, when was it great? Do we want to go back to Jim Crow? Now, if you take a look at the other side, they're saying that things are so bad right now that we have to call Doc Brown and transport ourselves into the future, into some idealistic future that's never happened before, where everything is kind and perfect and there's no poverty and there's no prejudice. That's what we have to do. It can't wait. Forget about the fact that there's been a tremendous amount of progress made in much of these areas. Obviously, we're not in a civil war right now, although some people fear one. Let's add that to the list. Civil war. Okay. So we're not in a civil war. We don't have Jim Crow. We have universal suffrage. I mean, a lot of things that are desired have already happened or are happening, but they're not fast enough. So this time period now sucks. So we can be anywhere, but right here and now. We can be in some idealized past where apparently everyone had morals and the standards were very high, or we can be in an ideal future where everyone is kind to each other all the time. Nobody ever insults anyone. Nobody ever makes anyone feel unsafe. But we cannot be right here, right now. You want a formula for anxiety? Not being right here, right now. Not being where you are. There was a book by Eckhart Tolle. Tolle? I think it was by him. No, John Kabat-Zinn. Wherever you go, there you are. Okay. If you stop and take a breath, you might realize that there's very little in this moment that's going to harm you. In this moment. That doesn't mean there's not the potential for threats. But right now, where you are, the danger is not as much as people want to make it seem. So, don't be in present time. Have a perception of danger all around you. This is a wonderful formula for anxiety. And what are the effects of anxiety on the body and the spirit of man? I'll give you a hint. They're not good. It destroys. Okay? Fear, anxiety, stress in a chronic way destroys quality and quantity of life. So this manipulation that we're getting seemingly chronically from the outside, from people who are trying to sell us things, is destroying us in various ways. It's a terrible thing when you think about it. And anyone who's doing it And again, listen, pointing out dangers is not totally stupid or unwarranted. Doing it chronically as a way to achieve a certain result may be. And by the way, it is a hard distinction to draw. I have no doubt that there are people listening to me right now and saying, but those things that you mentioned, they're true, they're happening. We have to do something about it. We have to build our bunker. That's become a big thing lately. People are building homes with safe rooms. The ultra wealthy are apparently building homes that are safe houses in and of themselves. They have 10,000 square foot homes underground, like luxury bunkers. So if you're saying to yourself, but some of these things are true and you want to defend it and you want to defend the people who are telling it to you, you can do that. But this conversation is not really about truth. We're not talking about that or perceptions of truth, because good luck with that. I mean, who has the exact order of magnitude of the dangers that actually exist? Can anyone really tell us? Everyone thinks they have an idea, but you'll hear some people exaggerating and some people minimizing, and so who could really say? But that's not what we're talking about. I mean, it would be great to be able to peg it exactly. We're not talking about truthiness. We're talking about anxiety and how to navigate this world where everyone's trying to sell us on the fact that we live in a very, very dangerous time and place. And if we buy their shit, that will save us. We're talking about our own health. We're talking about not going under. You think more people now are mentally healthy than before the pandemic or before all this rhetoric? Before we had handheld devices that were yelling into our faces all day? Okay. No, it's increased. And it's arguably decreased quality of life, but I don't want to argue that it's so bad right now. I want to argue that it depends on what our focus is. Because if we're talking about sales, and remember, I said the election cycle is the world's longest, most intense sales cycle. If we're talking about sales, then what we're seeing is there's a fight for our attention and our votes and our money. Right? That's what these merchants of chaos want ultimately. And their main means of getting it is to create this very fearful environment. So it's a matter of manipulating attention. Because the things that they're saying do exist. Most of the time, it's not made up out of whole cloth. Most of the time. There are times where it's just made up. In fact, this past week, 2 media companies, one settled, who were making stuff up. One had to settle a defamation case. And another one is liquidating because they made stuff up. Okay, so that does happen as well. But if their main methodology is hijacking our attention, then it stands to reason that the solution is to recapture our ability to focus our attention. Let me give you an example, and let me give you the solution. Here's the solution. I told you, if you vote for me, you'll be okay. Wawa. There's your solution. Wawa, Quick Check, 7-Eleven, convenience stores. Have you been to a convenience store lately? First of all, they're fascinating. I generally, historically, did not go into a lot of convenience stores, but, I decided that I can't get a $7 latte every day. So I started going to these convenience stores, and they're fascinating. I mean, first of all, they're basically fueling stations, both for cars and for human beings. I mean, it's an amazing ritual that happens with American workers. Before they go to their jobs, they want to fuel up with something, with coffee, with food. Now, we can have a conversation about the quality of the fuel that are offered at these convenience stores. It's arguably not the best. It's not the best. But here's the great thing about Wawa. If you go in there and you observe people, it will restore your faith in humanity. There's a big statement. Nothing hyperbolic about that. But I get that feeling when I go there, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, the crowds in there. I mean, there are a lot of blue-collar people. There are a lot of people who work with their hands, tattooed up. But you will also find the Wall Street guy in his Brooks Brothers suit. You will also find, the lady who's dripping jewelry. So you have the whole panoply of, if we want to call them classes or at least economic status. You will find all of them there. And even though there are a lot of people there and they're there to get fueled up and it's the morning, so it's before they've had their coffee or at least their second cup of coffee, before they've had a bite, everyone is so polite. In my experience, I've never seen a problem at one of these stores. And every single time I go in, and by the way, they're busy in the morning. This is their rush hour. And every time I go into one of these stores, someone holds open a door for me. Or if I hold open a door for them, they say thank you. There's just politeness there. I mean, in that sense, it's how it's supposed to be. And nobody gives a shit about your politics or what you look like, or not in my experience. And it's the same thing walking out. And then everyone is serving themselves the coffee for the most part. And everyone's very considerate about that. Generally, it's not messy in the coffee area, even though everyone's doing their own thing, right? Pouring the coffee and, choosing the creamer and what have you. And it's not terribly messy because everyone's conscientious about that. And it's orderly. Listen, I don't want to exaggerate too much, but it's the opportunity to observe people who are not being a-holes on social media, to get a better sense of who people are. Most people are polite in their public discourse, face to face. They're not so much with their avatars on the internet when they're not being divided. I mean, the level of division there is, and do you want the hazelnut creamer or the Irish cream? I mean, it's just everyone is there to do their things. First of all, it reminds us that most people are working hard. Look at any individual and you can say to yourself, you know what? This guy is here to fuel up for work. It's important for him that he does a good job. He needs to get a little energy. He's probably got a lot of stress at home. So he comes in here for this. And when he comes in here for this, he's conscientious about not messing the place up. He's polite about opening doors and saying please and thank you. And you may not see smiles all the time there, but you're not going to see angry faces either. People are busy. So I'll say it again. You want to restore your faith in humanity, go to Wawa or Quick Check or one of those places. Very interesting experience when you do that. Okay? But here's what I want to impart to you, which is this. Simultaneously in the world, all these things that are being pointed out, many of them do exist. Simultaneously with all the horror and the gore and the threats to our very existence, there are wonderful things happening. I mean, we act as if there's, these themes and that's all there is. Like, it's not all happening at once. We act as if it's a sitcom and we have this one storyline and then maybe a B story or whatever they call it, the secondary storyline. That's not how it exists. It's more like if you go to a big party with a couple of hundred people, there's going to be a couple of hundred stories. And yet, there is the whole party and the focus might be on the music and whatever, but there's going to be all these little dramas there. It's kind of the same thing. Like there's at the same time that there's threat of a nuclear annihilation, right? That's one of the things I didn't mention. I should have. I'm sorry. I thought about making a list. I figured I could easily get 20 things on a list without thinking about it, right? So at the same time that exists, there are people falling in love. There is a boy being given a puppy. There's a little girl in pigtails running after a butterfly. Everything is happening simultaneously. And I know that doesn't seem as impactful, but what is more impactful than people actually living their lives, growing, experiencing, relating? Everything's going on at the same time. So let's do this little experiment. If you have a chance and you're not driving, close your eyes for a minute and imagine the entire spectrum of humanity, from good to bad. And the very good will be the very positive emotions and events. Right? Weddings, first jobs, happiness, smiling faces, love, the birth of healthy babies, right? If that's what you consider the kind of the highest aspiration. And on the other side, there's the very bad, there's the evil. War, famine, poverty, disgusting crimes that I don't even want to mention. So think about that. Think about that spectrum. And then consciously put your hand over the bad side. Metaphorically, put your hand over the bad side. And focus on all that good stuff. And I know that sounds kind of glib, right? Like this is where we end up after this journey. We end up at focus on the good. I think the journey is important to have the full understanding, right? That everything is happening simultaneously. And people are fighting, they're vying to focus our attention on the bad for their own purposes. And yet we, with the full understanding that it's all existing at the same time, can choose to take our power back by focusing on that stuff that we want to. That spectrum never goes anywhere. That will always be happening. No matter how bad or painful or hopeless things look, that other stuff is always in existence, or at least the potential for it is in existence. And I've talked about Viktor Frankl before, Man's Search for Meaning. This is the gentleman who found himself in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany. And he concluded that the very last choice there is our attitude and how we feel. And I had my friend Nika on, who wrote a book about that same subject and how she was able to do it. So this ability exists. This is a real thing. And if you find yourself in a hole, it's a good place to start to pull yourself out of. And I am not coming from a place of just like rah-rah positivity. I'm not that guy. Nor am I saying that we don't have to address some of those real bad situations. Okay. What I'm saying is that we get to direct our own attention. We get to look at things as they are in the present, even if that means a trip to Wawa. And we get to take our attention back from the merchants of chaos who are trying to dictate to us where our attention should be. Screw them. I wanted to say something else. All right. So I think that's pretty much it for today. I hope this was meaningful for you. Please feel free to share it. I think it's an important topic. Like I said, it is the summer now, so we do have some of our attention on those fun things. And that's why I said it's ticked up a little bit, the anxiety. I expect it to be more of a flood as we continue towards November. But don't forget that we do have this ability. Okay? That's it for this week. See everyone next week. Take care. Behave yourselves.